My brother mocked me for being broke and living paycheck to paycheck. When his fiancée announced her pregnancy at their engagement party, I casually mentioned that the baby's father was actually her boss, and he's still married. And that's what happened next. It started when we were younger. Our parents struggled financially after Dad got laid off from his factory job. I was about to start college, but seeing how stressed my parents were about money, I made the decision to start working right after high school to help support the family while Hunter went to college. I figured I could always go back to school later, but at that moment, our family needed immediate help. Instead of being grateful for this sacrifice, Hunter turned it into ammunition against me. Over the years, his comments got more frequent and more cutting. At family gatherings, he'd make snide remarks about my career choices, or ask if I needed help paying for dinner. When I moved into my small apartment, he asked if I needed him to loan me money for furniture. The breaking point came at his engagement party last Saturday. He and his fiancée Nora held it at this upscale restaurant where a single plate costs more than what I make in a day. I had to skip lunch for 2 weeks to afford a decent gift, a set of premium cooking knives I knew they wanted. I even got them engraved with their initials because despite everything, he's still my brother. When I gave them the gift, Hunter smirked and said, "Oh, how economical of you." Nora at least had the decency to look embarrassed, but she didn't say anything. Throughout dinner, Hunter kept making these little jabs about my modest lifestyle. He'd point out the wine prices and ask if I was sure I could afford my portion. When discussing their upcoming honeymoon plans in the Maldives, he turned to me and said, "Maybe if you weren't so lazy and actually applied yourself, you could afford nice things too." Our parents looked mortified, but nobody said anything. I could see Dad's hands shaking as he gripped his fork, probably remembering all the overtime he worked just to keep us fed. That's when Nora stood up to make her big announcement. She was beaming as she told everyone she was 2 months pregnant. The room erupted in celebration, and Hunter looked so proud of himself. But here's where it gets interesting. About 2 months ago, I was at this local bar downtown. It's this casual place where I sometimes go after work, because they have decent happy hour prices. I was sitting at the bar when I noticed Nora walk in with this older guy. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then they got really cozy in one of the booths. Definitely not professional behavior. I recognized the guy because he'd been to one of our family barbecues last summer. Richard, Nora's boss. Hunter had introduced him proudly, talking about how Richard was grooming Nora for a promotion at their law firm. Richard had brought his wife and kids to that barbecue. Once I even saw them kissing in his car in the bar parking lot. I didn't want to believe it at first. Maybe that's why I didn't say anything immediately. Plus, who would believe me over Hunter's perfect fiancé? I started taking pictures not because I'm some creep, but because I knew Hunter would never believe me without proof. I sat there at the engagement party, watching everyone congratulate them, thinking about all the times Hunter had belittled me, made me feel worthless, and thrown my financial struggles in my face. Something in me just snapped. I waited until the excitement died down a bit, then casually said, "Oh, that's wonderful. Is Richard excited about becoming a father?" Hunter looked confused and asked, "Who's Richard?" I took a slow sip of my water, the only thing I could afford on the menu, and replied, "You know Richard? Your boss? The same Richard who brought his wife and kids to our family barbecue last summer?" Hunter started yelling at me, calling me a liar, but I could see in his eyes that he was connecting the dots. All those late nights at the office, the sudden business trips, the secretive phone calls. Our mother started crying and several guests got up to leave. I pulled out my phone and showed Hunter the photos I'd taken. The pictures of them kissing in his car were pretty hard to explain away. I'd originally planned to tell him privately, but after months of his constant belittling, I chose violence that day. I have to admit, seeing his face as he swiped through the pictures gave me a satisfaction I'm not proud of. Hunter lunged at me, but our father held him back. I calmly gathered my things and said, "Maybe if you spent less time mocking my poor lifestyle and more time paying attention to your relationship, you wouldn't be in this situation. But hey, at least you can afford a good divorce lawyer, right?" I left the restaurant to absolute pandemonium. Hunter keeps alternating between threatening me and begging me to tell him everything I know about Nora and Richard. Mom thinks I should have handled it privately, but Dad also admitted he'd always felt guilty about not being able to send me to college, and seeing Hunter throw that in my face all these years had been killing him inside.